Can I make 1 million dinars in 1 hour with smithing in Bannerlord? Well, let's find out. Hey Siri, set an alarm for 1 hour.
1 hour, starting now.
I started off with a character creation screen. This gives multiple options you can choose to design your character a certain way with perk points and attribute points. So, for each one I selected the following. For family, I selected smiths. Early childhood, your skill with horses. Adolescence, gathered herbs in the wild. Youth, rode with the scouts. Young adulthood, famous escapade. And finally the starting age of 20. After that we spawn in. I picked Britannia as my culture, so I actually spawn in at Britannia lands. From here I stripped down and did the truffle shuffle. I sold all my clothes to the town and kept my weapons for smelting later on. Make sure to not miss the civilian tab as well. After that I bought all of the hogs from Marinoth, chopped them all up and sold them back to the town. This basically doubled my money. Then I needed to find a companion. One with working limbs would do. Stripped them down and brought them over to Sianen. At Sianen, they have a lot of wood, which is what we will need to get our smithing started. So I bought all of the wood and then bought weapons worth 200 dinars or less to give us some starting materials needed to make the weapons. Headed into the smithy and smelted down all of my wood into charcoal. Once I reached level 25 in smithing, I took this perk that gives more charcoal when refining wood. And quick tip, when your stamina bar fully depletes, you'll have to wait 75% of a day in a town to refill it. After all the wood was refined, I started to focus on smelting down the weapons we bought, turning them into crude iron. Once I had enough metals, I headed to the free build tab and two-handed swords. I increased the sizes of all the parts and crafted as many as possible. Whilst refilling my stamina, I kept checking inside the town's trade menu and buying up more weapons, selling my crafted weapons to keep me afloat. After I crafted all the swords I could, I then smelted them all back down into metal. This gives half of the parts back I used to make them, but also gives me XP, which unlocks new parts for that weapon. I kept making swords with level 1 parts until I unlocked some level 2 parts. I quickly swapped these out for the old ones, which increased not only the selling price of the weapon, but also the XP I gained from crafting and smelting them. I hit level 50 in smithing and took this perk that gives extra XP for smelting weapons. My companion also reached level 25 in smithing, so I gave him the charcoal perk too, which freed me up to use my stamina for other things. I rinsed and repeated buying more weapons, smelting them down, crafting two-handed swords and smelting them down until I reached the high tier level 3 parts. I also reached level 75 and took the perk that gives more XP for crafting. To move on to better parts, I now needed better metals. To get these, I needed Pugios and tribesmen throwing daggers, which are only available from Empire towns. These weapons give the highest tier metals in the game and are the cheapest way to get them. So I headed over to Epic Rota and bought all of their wood, Pugios and tribesmen daggers. I also checked for another companion to help with the smithing, but there wasn't one there. I then smelted down the weapons I just bought and kept crafting and smelting until I unlocked all of the parts for the two-handed sword. Now it's time for millions to be made. I headed around every Empire town buying all of their Pugios and tribesmen daggers, crafting and selling the best two-handed swords to fund my dagger addiction. I finished buying them all and headed back to Sianen. I bought all of the wood and started crafting. With each sword giving me 21,000 dinars per sale, I'd need around 48 swords to sell to make 1 million dinars. So, with an inventory full of overpriced metal on a stick, I headed back around the Empire towns and rinsed them of all of their money. Once I finally reached Sianen again, I was 1 million dinars richer and still had plenty of time left on the clock. So, the answer is, yes, you can make 1 million dinars in 1 hour, and could probably make even more. But if you need a more in-depth guide on how to use smithing to make yourself a millionaire, then watch this video here.